It all comes down to story. If you're working on a project, whether it's a nonfiction memoir, educational material, or a work of fiction, your ability to engage a reader comes down to telling a compelling story. I'm Douglas Moser, and I've helped writers hone their craft from proposal to finished product. I've coached budding memoirists and talented novelists, helping them find the story and refine their work. With a background in journalism, film, theater, fiction, and nonfiction, I can work with you in any capacity. To learn more, check out my website at douglasmoser.com. That's DOUGLASMOSER.com. And if you mention The Trouble with Sex or Dr. Tammy, I'll give you a 20% discount on all our work.
Want to create a more exciting, sexy date night? Whether you've just started dating or are already in a committed relationship, the Date Night card deck is designed to bring you and your partner to new heights of passion and romantic intimacy. The Date Night card deck includes a variety of sexy and stimulating questions and action cards designed to help you find new ways to communicate and connect. Move your relationship into new realms and maybe even jumpstart a wild and sexy night. Order your Date Night card deck today on Amazon. Just type Date Night card deck Tammy Nelson. That's Date Night card deck Tammy Nelson. Create your exciting and sexy date night today.
Hi, sexy listeners. Welcome to The Trouble with Sex. I'm Dr. Tammy. Buckle up, my friends. Get ready to talk about sensuality and desire and a surprise topic for today. Today on our show, fellow sex therapist and host of the Sexology Podcast, Dr. Nazanin Moali is joining us to discuss trauma, how trauma reshapes desire, the difference between arousal and desire, and how to reclaim your sensuality. And we're also going to talk about sex after discovering that you're parents. And so I'm so excited. Dr. Nazanin is a clinical psychologist, a sex and relationship expert, and they help individuals and couples improve their sex lives to be more passionate, have more connection, and a sexier relationship. She's got a top-rated sexology podcast with over 500 episodes. And if anybody knows how hard that is, I do. So it's very, very impressive. Every week, they interview experts, psychologists, researchers, sex experts to explore sexology, psychology, sex, intimacy. And I heard also, this I did not know about you, that you launched a similar highly rated podcast in Farsi in 2016. So you have a lot of training in intercultural, diverse ideas around sexuality, which I really want to talk about today. You also have training in eating disorders and addiction. You've published research. You speak at conferences and in the media. And I'm so happy to have you on the show today. It's really exciting to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I love your work. I love your show. And it's my honor to be part of this podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And are you comfortable sharing with our listeners where you are today in your life and the huge development that's happening?
Well, this is the first time I'm sharing this with someone out of my community, outside my community. And this has been a very interesting week. I was just sharing with you, Dr. Tammy, that we just adopted a baby girl. She's 6 days old.
Oh my God.
And it all happened so quickly. So I'm in Utah and we're planning to drive back to California soon.
Oh my God. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's so exciting. And so my guess is now you're going to be the expert on how to work a relationship when you have a brand new baby.
Well, it's interesting. I have had work with so many clients and had friends that they went through the journey, and I knew how challenging it could be, but I'm on day 5 of not sleeping. So I have a new perspective on that.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome to the torture of not sleeping. But I mean, you also have been through such a process with adoption. And I don't think that we talk about that enough because it has its own unique challenges and stress. And, when you're 9 months pregnant, you kind of build up to it. You lose sleep. On the last few months, you can't sleep. It's uncomfortable. It kind of prepares you in a way. But when you've been waiting and there's ups and downs and promises and then disappointments, and then all of a sudden you get a call and you're like, okay, let's go. We're like, what? Wait, I got to cancel all my plans. And I was going to do a podcast. And I can't believe you showed up today. Thank you so much. And now you're like, okay, I guess I'm a parent today.
It's been very, very interesting and unexpected because, as you mentioned, there are so many layers to it. There's so many disappointments. And as we were just talking about, we came to Utah and the birth mom changed her mind, which was okay. So we were back home in California within 24 hours. I was planning to go to Iceland to recover from my grief, and I got the call while I was wearing my white fur coat, packing for the trip. So it's been such a wonderful journey so far.
Wow, what a roller coaster. So you went back home, you packed to go on your grief trip, which I respect, and then the mother said she changed her mind. You can have the baby. She was ready to let go. And wow. So you went back to Utah, took off your fur coat, went back to Utah, put away your Uggs for now. Wow. So your life has changed so dramatically in a week.
Absolutely. And I was really counting on hospital training. I have a good relationship with birth mom, and she wanted us to be in labor. I was like, okay, everyone told me they're going to teach you in hospital all you need to know. But then due to circumstances, I didn't get that opportunity. So I was just at the agency and they gave me this 1-day-old baby. I was like, okay, good luck.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, what do they give you any counseling? Like, this is what you should do. This is how to handle this. This is what to do with your emotions. This is how you put on a diaper. I mean, of course you know how to do all that, but still, you think there'd be like a transitional period.
I did not know to do any of that. Like, one of my therapist friends, which I love, she gave me this book and she said, read this. And I was just speed reading and listening to the audio in the plane. And I was watching YouTube videos on how to change the baby with ZipRecruiter ads on it.
Oh my God.
I was waiting.
How to be a mom on the plane. Oh, Dr. Naz. Oh. If you need any support or help while you're back here in LA, you can call me anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard to remember what it was like. My baby's now 25.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah, in many ways, I feel really lucky. It's such a stressful time of like trying to keep them alive and healthy and try to keep yourself going. And at the same time, there is nothing more lovable than that little baby foot that you just want to put in your mouth, the little corn kernel toes. Like, I remember that time. They're just so edible and sweet.
Yeah, they're so cute and delightful, and terror at nights. No one told me about the night shift. And I can only imagine how it is for mothers who give birth to their children, right? Mm-hmm. Like being postpartum and also going through that exhaustion.
Mm-hmm. And you, if I can say so, you have a partner to go through this with. So can you imagine being like a single mom? What a stressor that is. How scary.
Absolutely. And not having resources. I mean, I used to work with children, not infants, but children when we have resources. So as a woman in my 40s, I know how to find resources. But I can only imagine like a birth mom alone with limited resources, postpartum, how challenging and devastating it must have been for her and for many women that mm-hmm. they choose to go on this journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I hate to almost ask you this question, but what advice do you have for mothers around keeping themselves sane and also, working on their relationships? Do you feel like you're not in a place to talk about that? Or Are you having a new experience of what the questions are that might come up? Like, how are you going to shift your relationship to your work around this new life that you have?
One thing that's been very interesting is we're just like, it's over a week that we are in this situation, and there's just so many layers of emotions. What I found interesting about myself is how often I'm reaching out for support. Like my community, my friends, they knew, like many of them are therapists, they knew I'm on this journey, and they're getting an text from me 7 a.m. Oh, here's the picture of the baby. How do you do this? Which I oftentimes had issues asking for help. And that's been very interesting for me to ask for support and help. And I think it's very helpful that I have a partner that he has my back. We're so far as a team. God knows what's going to happen in a few weeks. But and I've been seeing a new part of him, which I feel is very sexy yet nurturing. So it would be interesting to see how things evolve. But I know that for many people, intimacy can change, right? It's more about now you have to carve out space and time and energy. And I'm hoping to find a way to work through exhaustion. So I want to hear from you that how you had sex when when you had these small babies.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's like this biological imperative, whether you give birth biologically, whether you adopt. I just talked to somebody who it's a lesbian couple, and the biological parent went back to work full time, and the person who didn't give birth is the stay-at-home mom. And so there's some confusion, like who wants sex, who has higher desire, who biologically needs a break. But there is some, I think, almost like a cultural imperative to take a break from sex. It keeps you from being overstimulated by having children too close together, right? So
That makes sense.
yeah, I mean, it would just be too. I mean, it's like, think about having twins. Like if you had, if you had twins right now, the first 5 days, and you weren't sleeping, it's almost, that's kind of traumatic. Actually, as wonderful as it is, it really does take a village to take care of all those kids, and so your body kind of does shut down and goes into parenting mode and says, we're going to shut down that erotic part of our lives and work on, like you said, the companionship and working together. And it's a business to raise a kid. It's like, all right, let's put the corporation online and see how we can just make this happen and get through it and work on parenting as positively as we can and see what level of partnership we can get to. So it's a whole new level of compassionate partnering and collaboration. And like you said, you have resources you can reach out to and connect with people. I think that community is everything. And so it's almost like the community, the collaboration, the partnering, the friendship, all that stuff comes first. And then when you can take a breath and think about, okay, what would pleasure feel like? What would pleasure look like? Maybe you just need someone to rub your feet or rub your shoulders and hold the baby so that you can take a nap. Like that might be really hot. Like that might be like orgasmic enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I hear from many of my clients that they had children they have children that are under 2. The transition to their erotic self, it's been very challenging. Like many of them, they are into different things in kinks and BDSM, and they now have sometimes shame around, is it okay for a mom to be in that role? Is it okay for a mom to want sex? Which is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, like what's your role as a parent to be erotically connected or whatever? Yeah, totally. So can we just go back to the Farsi thing for a second? Tell me about your podcast that's in Farsi. I didn't know this about you.
Well, thank you. I grew up, as many of my community and my listeners, they know, in Iran. I grew up in my mom was a radical feminist, that she developed really acute kind of depression post-revolution, Islamic revolution, because of the changes in the society. But regardless, I had always access to good enough sex education. It wasn't necessarily very extensive, but I had information. So growing up, I learned to talk about sex with my friends. I was always very comfortable with doing that. And one thing I'm very passionate is about closing the pleasure gap for women. And what I notice in many women in conservative communities, sex is something you do for your partner. And then even if you want to do it for your partner, when you're having bad sex, you're not going to want to have sex. So even if it's you're doing it as a chore, you don't want to do it after a while. So I always wanted to talk about give sex education free, accessible, in a shameful way. So that's why I started my podcast in Farsi in 2016. And all I do is I answer people's questions. And what's interesting, Dr. Tammy, is that you get surprised how kinky people are in conservative communities, the types of things people are into and they're asking questions. I love it, but it's definitely kinkier than what I get from my non-conservative community. Like, you're gonna love this. I answered someone's questions about pegging. I have also a Farsi podcast, Instagram. It got 19 million views.
Oh my God.
And the number of men that I'm in pegging is more mainstream now, but like people who are coming to my practice because that's something that they're interested in a very conservative marriage, and they don't know how to talk about desire and what they want, and they feel like so shame around the desire. So that's been very interesting for me.
Can you explain to our listeners what pegging is? People who might not know that term.
Sure. Pegging is when a male-bodied person receive anal stimulation. It could be through a dildo. It could be through different way of stimulating anus. And many men experience one of the most powerful orgasm through prostate massage. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily attracted to same sex. That's a fear that many people have. Many couples in heterosexual relationship, that's how they experience pleasure. And that was the kind of education I shared in that post, and there's just so many people are interested into it. And it's been very fascinating to get people's questions.
Yeah, it's so interesting that for a conservative community, that would be so popular. Do you think it's because it's so forbidden? It's so complicated? It's so complex?
Absolutely. What I learned from working with conservative individuals in these communities is like the more taboo is a fantasy, the more delicious and erotically charged it is for them. Some of these fantasies that they share with me, it's just so difficult for them to talk about it with their partner. Even in couples therapy session, when I do couples session, I do part of my intake separately, and then I bring back the couples together. And no matter how much time passes, many of men in my community, just so hard for them to talk about. And I keep asking, is there anything else that you want to share about your erotic mind? It's like, no, we're doing okay, which kind of makes sense, right? And sometimes it's hard to have sexual experiences long term if it is difficult for you to share your erotic mind.
You know, the conservative idea of fantasy, like the thing that we're the most afraid of is the thing that we're the most drawn to, which makes sense. In my research, I've found that people's fantasies at the root, or many times like their anxiety, the thing that they're most afraid of is also the thing that has the biggest erotic charge.
Yes, absolutely. And the number of feedback I got from people panicking that this woman want to turn our men gay, like if that's like something that you can turn people, right? And not understanding anatomy and erogenous zone and how pleasurable it could be physiologically to get stimulated for male body through anus, and psychologically the taboo part of it, the surrender, which can, even talking about it with your partner, of course, if they're open to it, that can spice things up and bring excitement because you're sharing a part of you that you haven't shared with your partner, and that can bring lots of novelty if it's done correctly.
Wow. I love that. And I love that you're so open to it. And I also like that, you're someone who also can talk about the difference between arousal and desire, that arousal is in your body and desire is a thing in your mind. Do you want to say more about that?
Absolutely. Sometimes when I get couples that they have some struggles in their sexual experiences, they get very confused when the arousal doesn't show up. As you mentioned, arousal is more of a physiological response. They feel their partner, they don't want them. Desire is wanting to have sex. Sometimes we have desire and arousal is not showing up, which we can definitely talk about it. Desire, part of it is psychological, right? Kind of like what really turns us on, the safety that we're feeling, and motivational part of it, like our motivation for have sex. And arousal is more physiological response that you're having. It could be for many people could be getting an erection, getting blood to your clitoris, like all sorts of different changes that happens in our bodies. And for some people, which I know you have talked about it many times, the arousal could show up first when you have responsive desire, and then the desire follows. So if you're waiting first for desire, you might miss the opportunity for sexual connection. But sometimes if what I see sometimes is that when a partner doesn't they're not able to experience arousal, the partner immediately feels it's a rejection because they feel the partner doesn't want them, versus sometimes thinking about physiological challenges that can contribute to challenges around arousal.
So can you say more about the physiological challenges? Because I think you brought up a couple different things that really show up a lot for people, for our listeners, for my clients, for my friends. Like the idea of number one, if you don't want sex, you don't want me. If you want sex but you can't have sex, it's because of me. If you want sex but your body's not responding, then there's something wrong with my body if my body's not reacting. Or there's something wrong with my attraction to you, therefore it must be your fault that my body's not responding. Like we have a lot of different narratives around what it means to get an erection, have an orgasm, ejaculate, reach climax. We have so many stories that we tell ourselves about what all these things mean.
Absolutely. One of the more common challenges that can get in the way of people experiencing desire or also arousal, is how stressed we are. As a society, we're constantly in the mode of doing, and we get rewarded for that, right? Like we get rewarded for how many meetings we do during the day. We're in a place of high cortisol constantly, and when we have higher cortisol in our body, it's really difficult to get turned on, because in order for you to be able to turn on, your nervous system needs to be at the place of rest and digest. When you're at the place of fight and flight, the focus is on survival. So no matter, I get clients at times, they even take Viagra, other medication that supports them with getting an erection. But if you are highly stressed out, even with the support of medication, you will not be able to get aroused. So the stress part is really, really important to make sure that if you want to be able to have desire and arousal, it's important to be at the place of rest and digest. Give yourself opportunity to be back in your body, because when we are in the place of survival, it can be positive for our work. Like we get rewarded for it if we're getting tasks done, and when we're hustling, because we are in a culture that it's a hustle culture, reward doing, and it's really hard for us to be able to at the place of relaxation and connection. So that's something that's important to keep in mind. And speaking of what you were talking about, is it about my partner that I don't want to have sex? I'm just going to be very honest. Majority of time, it's really easy for me to access desire. But because I've been so sleep deprived, like no matter who's going to show up in my door, I rather take a nap. And this is the first time I'm having this experience, because when you are exhausted, right, it's just hard to access arousal. And this is something for many people can create shame. We are living in a culture that we want to be quote unquote perfect. We want to have perfect sex life, perfect marriages, perfect relationship. But when we're exhausted, it's hard to show up at a place of connection. So that can get in the way of arousal. So there could be a number of different things that can impact someone not being able to access their desire or not being able to access arousal, even though that they find their partner attractive, they are in a great hot relationship, but maybe this is a season that we need to make adjustments.
Totally. And like what you said makes so much sense. That level of stress or exhaustion. And I think the stress of our current society that we're all in adds to that stress and exhaustion, all of which perpetuate that constant low level of trauma that people are experiencing. So I know for myself, I had a pretty serious trauma. I've talked about it on the show before, about 6 months ago, where I had a concussion and I've had a lot of post-traumatic stress symptoms. And what I notice is that in order to feel any kind of intimacy or even a desire for pleasure, it takes a long time for my nervous system to sort of adjust, to come down, to relax, to feel like I can take a breath. I basically, even if I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, my nervous system is still sort of clutched up around my shoulders and in protective mode. And it takes a different type of relaxation to come down to that flow state where I can be in a receptive mode or an interactive mode, not just sort of folding into myself. And I wonder, the stress from our political climate and the geographic climate, like everything that's happening right now that is so pressure filled in the world. I just make up, my story that I make up is that it's harder for everyone to sort of get to that pleasure space than it's ever been.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm so sorry you're experiencing that, and thank you for sharing that, because it's such a common experience that people have. And kind of as you said, whether it's a big T trauma or small T trauma of stress of everyday, financial, political, all of these things that create mental load, it just makes it so difficult for us to be at the place of erotic connection with ourselves and with our partner. Because one thing that I find very helpful actually is when people schedule intimacy, but it can be a tricky situation, because if we're kind of forcing it, so scheduling meaning it's another item in our to-do list, it's just really hard to be at a place of playfulness. Because if we want to have good sexual experience, we need to be feeling safe in our body, we feel kind of embodied, and also we are in the place of curiosity. But if it is another thing in our to-do list that we're doing as like a check mark, it can make it difficult to access that true erotic connection with ourselves and others. So I value scheduling sex, I value mindfulness, but sometimes I feel some people are not giving themselves enough time to be able to have that transition, to be able to safe in their body so they can turn themselves on.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a big proponent of the component of scheduling sex and having the date night once a week at least. But I do agree that for some people, especially if you've had a sexual abuse trauma in your history that feels coercive or non-consensual, sometimes saying, oh, well, just go home and have a sex date can feel like, oh, something else that I don't really want to do, but now I have to do because someone's telling me to do it. That can feel not really sexy. So I always tell a couple that the person who feels the most ambivalent about it should be the one that sets the date and the time, and to acknowledge to each other that it could feel like a replay or a parallel process to all the stress in your relationship. So in other words, yeah, we'll have sex every Thursday. That's our sort of sexy night. But if you're late or if I have to light the candles, or if you forget, or if I'm the only one that shows up, or if I have to remind you of the calendar, then we get in an argument. And those are the same patterns that happen for Wednesday night grocery shopping, or Tuesday night movie night, or you're supposed to pick up the kids on Monday. Like the same exact conflicts just replay during our sexy date night. And that's stuff that we can talk about and work through. So don't let that stop you from having a sexy night.
Absolutely. And one thing that I personally love and I share with clients, and I know you do too, the importance of novelty. Right. Sometimes when people are trying to feel excited about their relationship, which is long-term relationship, the relationship goes through different seasons. If you're not connected sexually with your partner, it doesn't mean that the relationship is broken. But if you're at the season that you want to reconnect, it is definitely a journey. And I recommend people, first of all, like we're kind of like starting with sharing our erotic mind. I love that, like whether it's like about talking about your fantasies or watching something that you think it's sexy, something that feels low pressure before going back to uh, kind of physiologically connecting, if that's been something that's challenging. And I love people doing novel activity, whether it's sex related or non sex related, because that helps you to feel excited. And in my experience, or at least it could be my lived experience, a good sex is about feeling alive. Right? Like when we are stressed, we are focusing on staying alive. But when you feel alive during sex, you feel like validated. And that can be really, really sexy. And sometimes when we're doing things that has an element of novelty, whether it's our sex life or outside the bedroom, that can re-energize our connection.
Do you want to give us some examples of some novel things besides adopting a baby? something new and exciting.
Well, it depends on like what people are into, right? So for people, we have different type of intimacy. We have physical intimacy, sexual, experiential intimacy. It could be intellectual intimacy. So depending on what people are interested in, if for you like experiential intimacy is important, I invite people to create a bucket list together, like that they do something new every season. Right. It could be if you're into exercise, doing a hiking, extra physical activity together. Maybe it could be watching something new, learning a skill together. Because we know when you are in the mode of learning, you are at the place of curiosity. And when we are at the place of curiosity, it's easier to feel connected with our partner. Because what kills our majority of people's sex life in long-term relationship is that you think you know your partner. You know what they're thinking. You're just checked out, like when it comes to sex, they're going to 1, 2, 3. So you know what comes next. But when you are exploring novel activity, it gives you this opportunity to see your partner in different perspective. Or it could be in bedroom. I tell people that when you want to incorporate something new in the bedroom, you can pair it with something that you already like, right? Like maybe you want to add some toy, maybe you want to go to a workshop. So you're doing things that you like and you add this element. And the focus is just being curious and present. So it's not one of those performance focused things that you do. It's just more about the experience.
Going back to pegging, for instance.
Maybe that's for second month. We're not introducing it the first month.
For those of you who want to try the second month novel experience. Pleasure without pressure, which is something that you talk about. Do you want to say more about that?
Absolutely. So when we're thinking about how we can improve our sex life, and for majority of people, it's not about having more sexual experience. That could be a good start. But if you're having lots of mediocre to bad sexual experiences, that also can kill your desire. So when my invitation for the listeners is that to think about we're creating this spaces for erotic connection. The idea is for us to focus being in our body and being curious. And as you mentioned, it could be a foot rub if it's erotically charged for you. It could be a whole body massage. So the focus of that erotic session is for you to be present in your body and with your partner with no expectation, because no one feels turned on when they feel judged and graded. I mean, like it could be a turn on for some people if you have a specific erotic template. For a majority of people, it's just like when they feel they are in the performance part, it's just kills the desire. So scheduling something like maybe 20 minutes at least, so you can have that experience with your partner, that can be very powerful. If you need structure, I invite people, you can take tantric classes that you can do breathing with your partner. You can do all sorts of different embodied exercises with your partner with low pressure. Like your mind can go to this place of, oh, this is dumb, this is not exciting. You're just focusing it back in the moment with the partner. And one thing that can be helpful for these sessions is if you introduce a pivoting part, like something that helps you to calm your body and mind. So when you are stepping into this essential connection, you have calmed down your mind and body in a certain amount. So it could be doing breathing exercises together. It could be doing this ritual of taking sensual shower together. So the idea is for you to focus on getting back in your body, because sexual response, it's a natural response. It's not something you have to force it. But if you create the right environment for it, you will be experience more of it.
That's beautiful. When we come back, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask all of our guests, which is, what do you think is the biggest trouble with sex today? We'll be right back.
Davenport Publications presents James and Jim.
James Morrison had it all. A beautiful wife. A perfect family. He was ready for partnership with a prestigious management consultant firm in the big city. He had everything a man could want. Until...
One night, on an ordinary train ride home, James witnesses a murder. Or does he? And is his new client the murderer? Sometimes murder is just part of the job. Witty. Wicked. A diabolical new thriller by Douglas Moser. James and Jim. On sale now.
Are you at a crossroads in your relationship? Are you or your partner hesitant to commit the time and money to weekly couples therapy? You can resolve your conflict, work through affairs, increase intimacy, improve communication by working one-on-one with me, Dr. Tammy, in an intensive. It's similar to a couples workshop, but it's in person, private, just for the two of you, for a whole day or even 2 days. Come for an in-depth intervention that could last a lifetime. For more information, go to drtammynelson.com. That's DRTAMMY Nelson.com, and give yourself and your partner the relationship you both deserve.
Have you started to think about that sexy date night? Well, here's just a sampling of some of the cards. Touch your partner in a way that you'd like to be touched. Or how about this one? Describe a sexual fantasy you would never take into action but have thought about. To get your deck, just go to Amazon and type Date Night Card Deck Tammy Nelson. That's Date Night Card Deck Tammy Nelson. Create your exciting and sexy date night today.
The Psychotherapy Network or Symposium is the preeminent conference in Washington, D.C. for therapists. They recently started Innovations in Psychotherapy in Anaheim, California. We've attended both and asked attendees what they thought was the biggest trouble with sex today. Here's what one therapist had to say.
What do you think is the biggest trouble with sex today?
People don't talk about it. In some relationships, it's hard for people to actually talk about what they like or what they don't like.
We'd like to hear from you. What do you think is the biggest trouble with sex today? Go to thetroublewithsex.com and click on Ask Dr. Tammy and submit your response today. We may use it on a future episode. Now, let's get back to our conversation with our guest to hear their answer. We're back. We've been talking to Dr. Nazanin Moali about sex and pleasure and what it's like to be back in your body after trauma, what it's like to reconnect on date night. And it's been really fascinating for me, actually, and calming for my nervous system to talk about the difference between pleasure and sex under pressure. So I so appreciate you, Dr. Naz. Thank you so much for being here for all of us and our sexy listeners.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let me ask you the question that I ask all of our guests. What do you think is the biggest trouble with sex today?
That is such a great question. What I notice working with my client is that we lost the language of desire. Mm-hmm. People want to have more sexual experiences, more connection, more spark, but they think this is something they have to focus on doing more of. It's something else in their to-do list. But when it comes to desire, we know curiosity, novelty, being present, that's what makes a huge difference. I get a lot of people in my practice, they think about whether they're asexual or not, which of course we have like 2% of population that they identify as asexual. But I cannot be 80% of people coming to my practice being asexual or feeling like this marriage is broken because I don't want to have sex with my partner. So what's important is for us to learn in this season of life, how can we connect with desire? What does it mean for us to feel alive? And working on cultivating and getting fluent in that language, which is different for a person to person, but I often find being curious and present as a main ingredient for many people.
Yeah, what do you tell people who say, I'm just not attracted to my partner anymore? I don't want to have sex. That's like the biggest complaint, right? Across the board, all listeners, all clients, all your friends.
I ask them, tell me more about the relationship and tell me more about your erotic mind. I work with lots of heterosexual couple, and I get lots of women telling me, oh, no, I never been sexual. I never wanted to have sex. Or another version is sex was great at the beginning, but now I'm just no longer a sexual person. Mm-hmm. And when I ask them about their fantasies, their erotic mind, is something that we are cultivating. I know for male-bodied individuals, they are oftentimes more trained into how to empower their erotic mind. But for many women, it's something that sometimes they need to re-access it. So we're talking about whether the books that they're reading, things that they find that's sexy, and planting sexy seeds in their mind and getting curious about that. I think that oftentimes can be a good start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So we're going to take a question from one of our listeners. And I really appreciate when you all send in your questions and you go to the website, thetroublewithsex.com, and you send me questions at Ask Dr. Tammy. And we're going to take a question today from Stacy from San Francisco. I've been married 20 years to a man I adore. We were so excited to become empty nesters this year, but somehow we are busier than ever. We both have extremely demanding jobs, and now my husband is caring for his mother, who's at the end of her life. He's under so much stress with work, and now he's facing losing his mom. His sex drive has completely disappeared. It's not even just the sex. I feel like he's slipped very far away from me. What can I do to support him and foster our connection during this increasingly intense time? Well, Stacy, thank you so much for writing in and for asking these important questions. And I feel like, you've been married for 20 years. I love that you adore your husband. And I also feel like you're at this turning point in your lives developmentally where you're about to become empty nesters and you're taking care of aging parents. This is like such a common thing today for people at this developmental age. And the fear around, aging parents and the fear of losing them and having to take care of them at a time when you thought this could be your second adolescence and you'd have some freedom. I also hear that there's still some job demands, which sometimes by the time you're empty nesters, there can be retirement and more financial freedom. And that's a lot of stress on all of you. It kind of goes back to what you were saying, Nazanin, about the stress levels and how hard it is to be in that erotic place when you have high levels of stress. I mean, is there something you want to say to Stacy from San Francisco? I feel like she's going through so much.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned how understandable and relatable her challenges are, right? Kind of having multiple stressors around providing care for aging parent, financial changes. All of these stressors can really impact people's sexual response. Some of us have become more erotically motivated when we are under stress, and some people shut down. I think what's important for couples in different seasons of life when they want to connect is kind of going back to the what is the meaning of sex for us? What is the meaning that we have? For some people, it's connection. For some people, it's self-expression. For some people, it's intimacy. So having conversation about that meaning can provide this shared language and opportunity that how can we create that? Sometimes when we are so stressed out and overwhelmed, maybe having intercourse, it doesn't feel exciting for us due to how our body is not able to respond at times. It's just such a common experience. But sometimes having this moments, times in your schedule that you are dedicating to have connection, erotic connection with your partner that create that meaning can be very powerful. So maybe if it's emotional intimacy, it could be opportunities to have physical connection that creates a kind of like foster the sense of more intimacy, or it could be doing things that help you to feel more excited or adventurous things. So it's really important to have the conversation with your partner, dedicating some time to have those shared experiences. And sometimes it just breaks my heart as someone that loves novelty. It's just like adjusting our expectation. It doesn't mean that this is going to be the rest of the life, but in this season, intimacy might look different. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Dr. Tammy.
Yeah, it makes me think of the way that I describe the resources in a relationship, that there's 4 sort of corners: time, attention, affection, and sex. So, I always wonder what people are longing for, or they're feeling grief over the loss of, or they're feeling like they're not getting enough of, because it doesn't necessarily align with what your partner might be missing. And they tend to pile on top of each other. So you have to spend time together to feel like you're paying attention, to feel like there's room for affection. And sometimes that leads to sex. It depends on how you're defining sex. And sometimes you just want more attention or more affection. And it's not really the sex that you're craving, sort of what you're talking about. Like, how are you defining intimacy, and what are you really longing for at this phase of your life? What are you really capable of at this place in your life? And where's the oasis that you want to crawl into with your partner that will help you to feel like, oh, this is such a nice break from all the stress in our world right now. And the other thing that it makes me think of is, sometimes stress triggers the trauma that's under the surface. Trauma creates stress, but sometimes stress forces your body to remember that there's old traumas stored in there. And there's a difference, of course, between stress and trauma, but there's a reason we call it, post-traumatic stress, because trauma creates a whole system of stress in your body and in your sex life. But sometimes the stress of things like in your life, your parents being sick, job stress, climate change, like all the stuff that you might be going through can remember, reintegrate, reactivate old trauma that you didn't even know you had. And so, sometimes I see people walking around with all kinds of trauma symptoms and thinking that this is my job. Well, this is your job, and you're remembering a lot of things that have happened in your life.
I love that. And sometimes it can be the season for us to focus on strengthening our own erotic mind. I don't want people to necessarily feel the pressure of sex isn't something I need to do with my partner. I hear that that's the person's goal, but maybe if your partner is not available, this could be an opportunity for you to get to know different layers of your erotic mind, maybe doing some reading, maybe you can even do workshop, things that helps you to get more curious about yourself. So when your partner is available, then you can maybe share that with them. But I think sometimes people feel defeated when their partner is not available, and they feel the obligation to foreclose their own sex life.
So, what's one thing that you want listeners to remember if they've lost touch with their own sensual self for themselves?
My invitation for people to think about, this is not something that you lost. As you were just talking about, your mind and your body is reprioritizing things. So it will be available to you when you are feeling more safe, when you're feeling more embodied. Because as far as hierarchies that we have, safety is a hierarchy. So when you are creating safety in your body, this can be an opportunity for you to access that pleasure. So you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. We just need to use different strategies for you to be able to feel more embodied and more in a place that you can access that part of you.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice on some of those strategies?
Absolutely. So one thing that I love to do myself is ritual of embodiment. It could look different thing for different people. I know many people do have mindfulness, breathing practices that can help them to be more in their body, and that works for some people. For me, being more of an active person, I love to do some type of ritual that keeps me more connected with my body. I do at times the mindfulness shower. So when you're in the shower, you're really focusing on senses in the shower, focusing on the temperature of water in your genital. Some people have some practice of stimulation. What I also love is mindful masturbation. That can be a really, really powerful tool. And the idea with mindful masturbation, you can experience an orgasm, but that's not the goal. It's just the whole body experience that you're having. You're really getting to learn about different sensations in your body, getting curious about different touches, even using different lube. So it helps you to really practice in a low pressure way to really get into your body. Because sometimes when we are with a partner, we feel this pressure of showing up certain way or performing certain way, which gets in the way of us reconnecting with our sexual self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you're saying that, and especially as a Farsi therapist too. I think it's important to talk about self-pleasure and just sort of as a broad cultural message for all of us. So I appreciate you saying that.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add and make sure you mention before I let you go back to take a nap or be with your new baby? Anything else that you would like to share with our listeners?
I just want to highlight what you always talk about. Like, it's so common for us to have different erotic mind. There's no quote unquote normal when it comes to sexual interest. So our sexuality is often evolving. We can have all sorts of erotic stories in our mind, which can be a resource. So if your story is different than what's portrayed in media or your friends or what you think other people are interested in, there's nothing wrong with you. My invitation for you is to focus on accepting that part and maybe integrating it if that's something you're interested in your sex life with yourself and with others.
That's brilliant. I love that. Thank you. And how can people find out more about you? Where can they get in touch with you? How can they find your podcast? What else do you want them to know about you? We'll put all that in the show notes, but let our listeners know.
Thank you so much again for this wonderful opportunity. Dr. Tammy, I love your show. I love your book. So thank you so much. People can find me wherever they're listening to this podcast. They can search Sexology Podcast, and they can find both of my podcasts, English one and a Farsi one, in whatever platform they're listening. And they can check out my website at sexologypodcast.com.
Well, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking time to be with us today when clearly your time is really full right now. And it's such a pleasure to talk to you and to be with you. And I'm so happy about your successful podcast and the work that you're doing in the world. The people really need to know the things that you're saying.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your work and all the wonderful contribution you've done to our field.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Stacy from San Francisco, for writing in and asking your questions. To all my sexy listeners and to Dr. Nazanin Moali, thank you for being here today with us. Go to Sexology Podcast to listen to more. And if you want to be featured on our show here at The Trouble with Sex and you want us to answer one of your questions, you can go to thetroublewithsex.com and click on Ask Dr. Tammy. Until next time, it's been another fascinating episode. And I really hope you all stay sexy, stay safe, stay sane. Until next time. Have a question about your relationship or sexual wellness? Visit thetroublewithsex.com and click on Ask Dr. Tammy to send us your questions. For sex-positive tips, live events, and updates, join our mailing list and follow us on Instagram at The Trouble with Sex. Listen to episodes of The Trouble with Sex on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please share and rate the show. We so appreciate and thank you for supporting us. The Trouble with Sex is produced by Brandy Savitt. Audio for this episode was designed by Bethany Knoll Productions. This episode was engineered and mixed by Bruce Hirschfield. Music by Bruce Hirschfield.